because I got it up on my phone. Where's a good place to stand?
Wherever you want to stay.
Like right
wherever
in the
you
corner.
feel like you can practice sit.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Great. Everyone joining remotely, you can hear us. Kyle, I see your face. You're the only one I can see. Can you hear us? Okay, great. All right, I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, great. Well, good morning, everyone. Like I said earlier, I'm coming in from San Francisco, so the weather has been very interesting to experience. I've only been to New York a couple of times, so maybe I'll come in the winter and check out what the winter's like. Before I get started, I actually like just to first thank Lauren and the USV folks. I haven't seen any venture capital firm be as intentional with cultivating a community, and I think that is huge. So I really appreciate that. I'm excited to see how this network effect grows.
I'm hoping that goes viral by the end of today.
Yeah.
Network effects. Wow, that's top of mind.
So I'm Kevin. I'm the head of product at a company called Neighborly. We're actually not a USV company. We're funded by 8VC, Sound Ventures, Emerson Collective. What we do at Neighborly is we fund and build fiber optic infrastructure across the United States. How we do that is we actually have an in-house data science team of about 3 people, including data engineers. And what we do is we use data to find communities that are underserved. Typically, it's in the rural areas of America. And then what we do is we also sort of layer on the financial aspect of it. So we not only are we looking for places that we could have the highest impact, but we're also looking for places that would be a good business, right? Prior to that, and how I actually got into product, and I love hearing that folks are like moving laterally within organizations. I think that's like the only way I would recommend getting into product. So props, that's super awesome to hear. So I actually transitioned from the business side at Carta over to product. Carta, hopefully everyone here is customers if you're all USV portfolio companies. Carta is a cap table management platform. More recently, they've actually announced plans to build a private stock market exchange. So if all of us are in private companies, hopefully one day on Carta we can sell. That's the dream. A lot of interesting topics sort of kicking back and forth with Lauren, looking through a lot of the things that we talked about. Where I really focused in on was around this idea of what are frameworks that I've observed and I personally use for capturing and incorporating feedback into a roadmap. And so let's get into it. What is a roadmap? I started off this journey and sort of putting together this talk and really just asking practitioners that are product managers and folks like you all, what is a product roadmap? Here's how I would define it, and here's how my friends defined it. To me, I would actually first start with the job of product people. And I'm sort of saying that broadly, product management and product design. To me, the job of product is to solve problems for the business quickly and efficiently. Sometimes that means we build software and we ship software, right? And that's sort of the key thing. And if you accept that definition, then a roadmap really is just a set of measurable and discrete solutions. But at the end of the day, the roadmap really is just an output. We're describing this thing that is generated as an output from the organization, from the system or some Rube Goldberg machine that exists in all of our organizations, and we kind of know it exists and it functions, but I really struggled in figuring out what is this thing. And so I sort of went down this rabbit hole of organizations are like living organisms. There's all these symbiotic parts. You have sales, you have product, you have engineering, you have design, and they're constantly changing. And us, all the folks in this room, we're the white blood cells. We're dispatched to go solve problems in problem areas. And if you accept this analogy that organizations are living organisms, well then what I really am talking about today is the nervous system of every organization. Cool animations. Okay, cool. And one thing that all living organisms do, as well as organizations, is that we're constantly generating data, right? So sales folks are talking to customers, customer support's talking to existing customers. There's internal Slack. I would even say that data being generated is code being checked in to your code base. And it's really our job as product in this nervous system to set sensors up across this organism to make sure that we know when things are going poorly, but also we know when things are going well. Some of these sensors can be things like setting up OKRs, KPIs, all the way to setting up automated alerts. So the question I'll leave you with here is just what does your company's nervous system look like? Cool. When I first started at Carta, most people don't know this, but we had a lot of really weird rules. Things like, Laura probably knows about them, when you go into the office, you can't wear your shoes. And so we literally told investors that they had to take off their shoes, and they would always tweet about it, like, this place, something's going on here. We also had rules like, hey, engineers, you have to show up at 8:30 every day. The whole company needs to show up at 8:30. But the one that I wanted to share with you all, today at least, was that we didn't believe in roadmaps. And I promise I'll tie this back into why this matters. But yeah, this is something that in the early days, at 30 people at Carta, we did not believe in roadmaps. And this sort of relates to something Justin brought up earlier, which is this idea that we didn't believe in roadmaps because the organization objectives was changing month to month. And that's because we didn't have product market fit. And I think this is a really key concept, at least folks, to think about and to really picture. Hopefully our investors think we have product market fit, but I think it's an honest question that we should have, because based off of whether you do or do not have product market fit, that'll influence the objectives of your roadmap and the nervous system that you actually map out within your organization. Pausing for a second, how many folks here by show of hands believe their company has product market fit? Okay, so it's like 75% of people, remote folks, sorry. If you don't have product market fit, and I'm not saying just in your company doesn't, but typically,
no, we're working to it.
You're working to it, yeah.
Problem statement market fit, which is
yeah.
what my COO says.
Okay.
Like, we have a problem that's worth solving, and we're well on our way to getting
Yeah.
it. But I think you nailed it.
Yeah.
Because like the directional changes because we don't get that.
Yeah. And I think when you don't have product market fit, what you're doing is you're trying to understand two things. You're trying to understand who your customer is. Literally, like, who are they? What is their persona? What is their profile? Those are some terms we use. And then second, you're trying to understand what value you provide to them. What problem are you actually helping them solve? If you do have product market fit, like some of the folks here, the problem becomes very different. And I would argue that the nervous system actually looks really, really different from a company that doesn't. When you do have product market fit, it's not about trying to understand who your customer is or their problems. It's about trying to understand the adjacent customers and the adjacent problems, right? And you're trying to expand. And so two frameworks that I do want to, or sort of nervous systems that I do want to share with you all today is from a company that has product market fit and a company that doesn't have product market fit. And then I promise I'll touch on what we do at Neighborly, because that's probably what you all are here for. So this first company around finding product market fit comes from really this founder's obsession with PMF, product market fit. Investors telling him that he needed to have this. And so he went on this journey of trying to go and figure out what is this thing. And where he landed and in implementation, is really asking these 4 questions to every user. And I'm going to oversimplify for the purpose of this talk. But the way that he thought about finding product market fit was focusing on questions 1 and 4 for every user. And what he did is, so these questions are, how would you feel if no one could use the product? And answers to this question could be very disappointed, somewhat disappointed, or meh. Meh wasn't a thing. Second, what type of people would benefit from the product? What do you benefit most from the product? And then last, how could we improve the product for you? And the formula is really simple for how they found product market fit. They looked at people who answered very disappointed to question 1. So people who would be really sad if the product went away. And they said, these are our high expectation customers. These are the folks that are early adopters. They're our day 1 diehard users. And then it's really simple. You just segment. You look at anyone who answered very disappointed on question 1, and then you say, what did they answer in question 4? Right? Because question 4 really is that backlog of features or things that you can help solve, right? And so you have, who are your users? You can define them by question 1, and then question number 4, you can actually figure out what are the problems that you can go and solve for them. No surprise, this company is Superhuman. I'm a very happy client. What they found is that if they can get people who would be very disappointed if they couldn't use their product, around 40 to 50%, and there's actually been research done around this, right? Slack is a really good example where when they actually poll their users, it's like above 50% today. Above 50% of users would be very disappointed if Slack went away. I would be, devastated. And so, where they've actually amended this sort of nervous system that I would say exists at Superhuman today is now that they've found product market fit, they take their roadmap and they say, okay, 50% of the roadmap is going to be dedicated to people who would be very disappointed based off of question 1. And the other 50% is going to be dedicated to folks who would be somewhat disappointed, right? And so going back to this idea that finding product market fit, you want to focus on who are your customers. Once you have product market fit, you're going to be focused on folks that are adjacent. They've started to expand now, right? And so they divide their roadmap half and half to focus on that exact problem. The second company that I do want to talk through, and the second nervous system, is around once you have product market fit and finding those adjacent customers as well as adjacent problems to solve. This company, the way that they think about it is just putting things in 5 buckets. And these 5 buckets are things that they believe in. And so because this company is a lot larger, they've been around for longer, they want to stay innovative. And so they make sure that as one of the inputs into their nervous system is this idea of just wild bets that they want to take as a product, engineering, and design organization. And the second one is around iterating on existing product. And what this means is just ensuring accountability. We've all shipped things and then sort of been like, okay, it's done, like on to the next thing. And so being intentional, this company actually adds this as an input into their roadmap. Everything you ship has a roadmap that comes with it. There's a timeline that comes with it. The third one is around customer feedback. Now that you have product market fit, you should probably listen to your customers and make them feel heard and increase the value that you have for them, as well as to figure out what adjacent things you can get into from your existing product. And then the last 2 are related, one around scale. So this is definitely engineering owned. The idea being you have 1,000 requests when you first started as a company, but now you have 1 million requests. How do you handle that? And then quality, ensuring that you don't sacrifice on shipping bad experiences to your users, regardless of if you do have product market fit or not. This company is Intercom. I'm a huge fan of Intercom, and we probably all know this product for a very good reason. Cool. So this is how we do things at Neighborly. Sorry, there's a disconnect between the 2 screens that's throwing me off. This is our homepage. I really like it. So before I dive into our nervous system, a couple of guiding principles for us. We use this idea of 6 weeks, 6 months, and 6 years. 666 for short. And really, it's a way for us to think as well as communicate. And so you'll hear business, product, and engineering talk in this way. And the idea is, when we talk about things, let's level set first. Are we talking about something that is a vision statement? If you talk to our CEO, he is in the 6th year. And you'd probably even further. He'd probably even tell me, Kevin, I'm in the 20 year. If you're talking to a product manager who's managing an individual product, you're probably going to be talking to them on the 6-week level. And then the 6-month level is really where I hover. It's sort of the strategic initiatives. Second is this idea of outcomes, not features, right? And this is really, really important to us because if you think about features, not outcomes, you're assuming you know the solution to problems. And it's really important to never assume that and to always assume how are you getting this wrong, right? Third, it's this idea that we sort of built in-house around this idea of pain, frequency, and density. And we use this as a lens to look at problems that we want to solve. And the idea is you would look at how much something hurts, how much does it happen, and how many people does it affect. And we look at this across all problems that we look to solve. And so internally, what we do is we actually run a survey every month. Folks at Neighborly will probably tell you this is really annoying, but we do it regardless. The idea is you name one area of your work that is really frustrating to you, and then you rank it on these 2 axes of pain and frequency. Probably wondering where the density comes in. But when you actually graph it out, every month it looks something like this. And the density is really where all the clusters are, right? So without fail, every month we'll have these clusters, and you'll have these what we call Goldilocks zones of areas where these are problems probably worth solving. But what always ends up happening is we get features, not outcomes. So people give us a laundry list of 100 things to go and build. And it's great, but it's our job as product. And we actually do this intentionally where we actually translate all of this data generated internally from our own nervous system into something that's more outcome-based, right? And so we think about, okay, this is what people are saying, but what do they actually mean? What are the actual problems, right? It's the classic, like, give me a faster horse, right? No, they just want a car. Cool. More tactically, this is how we check in on each of the plans. So we actually manage our roadmap in this way. And this is kind of bizarre, and it's been fun trying to map OKRs to our roadmap in this way, but our roadmaps are managed in these chunks. And so we have a 6-year plan, which is the vision statement. And this is done on a quarterly basis. So leadership will go off and do an offsite, and quarterly we'll actually talk about, like, what does that future vision look like? How are you going to affect the world with things that we're shipping in the 6-month and the 6-week? Every month we do check in as a group on the 6-month plan. and this is managed predominantly by me. And then on the 6-week plan, each of our product managers actually own their own 6-week chunks of outcomes that they're trying to shoot for. And to be completely honest, they have full autonomy to do whatever they need to do to get to the outcomes. That can even mean I've seen people use analog Post-it notes to manage their sprints, just because everyone's local. I don't care how they do it as long as they get to their outcome. And I thought this would be cool to show like this in practice. So I'm a huge fan of Asana, and we use Asana to actually track the 666. And so what you're looking at, some folks might be familiar, might not be, but Asana has this feature called Portfolios that they recently released. And portfolios are really cool because what you can do is you can basically take a bunch of small components and bubble them up into a top. So what you're looking at here is actually from my account. I'm looking at a 6-month plan, and I'm looking at 6-week plans being bundled up into that. And the cool thing is I can see progress bars. I actually get status updates from all the product managers because they find it fun that like there's this full nervous system that we have activated. And like, you know, one of the most important things in this is that people are engaged and actively using it, right? So that's.
I'm sorry to pause.
Yeah.
Does someone on remote have any questions? I heard that. Anyone else heard that? That's just me. Apologies. Maybe it's the pipes, I don't know.
One other quirk that I picked up from Carta and that we live and breathe at Neighborly is this idea of business, product, and engineering. And so one of my biggest faults is when I talk to folks around what we do at Neighborly, and I specifically talk about product, I use product as an umbrella term for like design and product management. But really, this is something that exists within our nervous system and how we think conceptually about structuring our nervous system at Neighborly. And it's this idea, Dave McClure has this sort of archetypes of the hacker, the hustler, and the builder, or the designer. For us, it's just business, product, and engineering. And why this is important is because we actually have business folks in our stand-up, in our retrospectives, and in our sprint planning. And that sounds a little bizarre, but it's actually the pitch that I give to a lot of folks, regardless of what team that they are on, is that you'll actually be heavily involved, right? And in thinking about sensors across your organization, we just put people in the same room, and we're small enough that we have that luxury. But including people in these conversations has been really powerful for us to make sure that instead of having these sort of processes where you have to disseminate information, just put them in the room, right? And make them feel like they have an active voice. Outside of that, these are all other things that we like to do. So we have demos every week. This is sort of get feedback early, or a way for the product team to get feedback early. This is a way for me to hold accountable that people are shipping. Second to that, we have something called measure learn meetings. And this is something that we do sort of ad hoc, but the idea is that we've all heard of build, measure, learn. But I would like to hold accountable to the measure learn part. And especially this creates a muscle memory within an organization to deeply measure things, because this meeting is coming at some time in the quarter. And then out of this meeting, it's important to come out of it with actionable insights. The other thing we do is what we call product forums. So it's a room like this. It's open to anyone. And the idea, it gets a lot of inspiration from, so I did a lot of reading around SNL's process. SNL is a show that is doing shows every week, and they're phenomenal. How do they get so good at that in terms of ideation? And so for us, we try to create an environment where business, product engineering, whoever you are, you can come into the room and you can pitch the product team. And then what we do selfishly as product is we use it as a time to actually ask why, right? And we try to enforce product thinking in terms of, is this a 6-week thing? Is this a 6-month thing? Is this a 6-year thing? And it really helps us spread product thinking across the org. I know what you're saying, probably in your heads right now, how many meetings do you have at Neighborly? Do you get any work done? So our engineers will probably say we have a lot of meetings, and we do. But to me, one of the problems that I've seen a lot across product folks that I've worked with is this idea of getting super, super deep with building and getting very, very tactical. And so I've been very intentional from my personal experience with setting up, as I set up a nervous system at Neighborly, to make sure that there's touch points, to make sure that product people, business people, engineers are looking at the forest rather than just the trees. I mean, that's something that I personally hold very, very deeply because I've seen this happen way too many times. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, I couldn't find a good way to describe it, but it's the blind spot, I think. And we're thinking about the nervous system for our organizations. We're thinking about the output of that, which is a roadmap. But I think and I'd make the case that there's a sensor that I think is missing across a lot of organizations. And so to start with, I would actually like to append something that I said earlier on the job of product. I'd add that the job of product is to solve problems for the business efficiently, quickly, and I'd add ethically. So this happened in 2017. A software engineer went to jail. Most of us know about the incident. And a software engineer went to jail because he wrote software that tricked an emission sensor. And a bunch of VW vehicles got recalled, but he went to jail, which is one of the crazy parts. So I have two questions on this. Who is this person's product manager? No, but on a more serious note, how did we get to this point, right? We talk a lot about growth, metrics, KPIs, and we're a venture-backed company, and so that's important, and our investors do care about that. But at the same time, we don't talk often enough about the impact of these things, and I think that's a missing conversation. Could you imagine if there was doctors whose KPIs were around how many prescriptions they wrote? Right? That'd be insane. And they would honestly lose their license. And all doctors take something called a Hippocratic Oath, right? When they get their white coats. And I've talked to my medical school friends about this, around, isn't it weird that there's no Hippocratic Oath for people who build software? Especially folks who are working in my opinion, an industry that's, it's not that we're more important than anyone else, but the work we're doing is pretty high leverage and reaches a lot of people. And so what I'm suggesting, and I don't have a silver bullet for this, is to think about this missing sensor of ethics, right? Because this is something that is coming at all of us, whether we like it or not. The government, like regulators are looking at tech now and thinking about, how do you approach problems? Do you have a code of ethics to think about the way that you're building software? I'm also not suggesting that we get licenses. That's actually something I've heard a lot of folks talk about. Is like, if you want to become a product manager or you want to become a product designer or an engineer, you actually have to get a license, the same way that a doctor would have to need to get a license. So what I'll leave you with is this. The work that we do is bigger than shipping delightful user experiences. If that was our measurement, a casino would be a delightful user experience. But at the end of the day, it's still a casino. Thanks.
Any questions?
Oh yeah, Q&A. Okay, everyone stand. Yeah, let's see. The thing is done. Yeah.
Any thoughts? Yeah.
Sorry. Should have told you.
Thanks. This was actually really great. If anything, it gave me more questions too. I'm really curious how you structured the team or rituals. I mean, I love conceptually the idea of like the 666, but then how does it work in practice, like Monday to Friday, and then like the sprints? Like, just how have you gotten the team to buy into that and just really like make it part?
Yeah, I think the buy-in was whenever I approach buy-in, and a big influence for me as sort of like being a newer manager and a newer leader is this book, Dale Carnegie's Winning Friends and Influencing People. And so the way I just go about it is just highlighting the problem and and so for Neighborly specifically, we have a very strong CEO, very opinionated. And so when I first joined the organization, folks were, I would even say, like, scared, right? And really, I wanted to highlight that the problem was that we didn't have any formal structures or rituals as a company. And so people were looking for just anything to latch onto, right? And so we experimented with a couple of things. 666 just sort of caught on because, devil's in the roadmap, and it's something that just is kept and it spread, especially across business. So business folks started talking through this idea of 6 weeks, 6 months, and 6 years. So hopefully that answers your question, just like sort of highlighting the problem instead of, sort of jamming it down people's throats. Yeah.
Thank you. So how often do you kind of revise the 6 weeks, right? So 6 weeks are done.
Yep.
Do you decide what you're doing in the next 6 weeks, the day the 6 weeks end? Yep. Same for the 6 months. And then specifically with the 6 years, is it like a rolling 6 years, or is the next year defined every year? Yeah, kind of added on.
Yeah, great questions. So what we do, and this is a little bit expensive because we have a Boston and New York as well as a Kansas City office, but we have this ritual where we actually travel or move product and engineering leaders to one office the week before the 6 week cycle finishes. and then we go through this whole rigmarole of like putting together a plan, doing some deep thinking, very similar to OKRs. It's actually, I would say, the process, we've gotten really good at it. The 6-week planning to the point where OKRs are just like, let's go. You know, like, it really matters. And then on the 6-year plan, this is something that our CEO is really big on, or with Keynote. And so every quarter we'll do a leadership offsite, and it'll typically coalesce in the form of some kind, or it'll in a keynote, and then we'll actually use all of it all hands to actually go and present that if it updates. And to answer your question, it is rolling. So it's more conceptual, to be honest. It's not like this is the day that we're like mapping towards, but it's more sort of like this is well out of reach, and this is this is the yeah.
Sure. Just the question with the 6-month planning then, how does that lead into your 6-week planning cycles?
Yeah. So what I do is I use that as a sensor for myself to stay accountable, to make sure that not only am I collecting enough data on the 6-week plans to adjust the 6-month, but I actually use an all hands for product first, where I roll out what I'm thinking in terms of the next 6 months. And then I actually work with the leadership around sort of checking that as well. So
Okay, so you go from your 6-month plan down to their 6-week plan, and
Yep.
then they kind of, you do the check to see if it adds up.
Yeah, it's very similar to OKRs. The more I think about it, you have like the company level versus sort of like the team or the other squads, and then the individual.
And then as you have business folks and engineering folks and product folks in the same room at the same time, how and when do you translate the goals of product into that sort of thinking?
Yeah. To the customers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To the market more broadly.
I think that's something that's just, it becomes muscle memory
Mhm.
when you spend a lot of time around product folks, and
Mhm.
especially around product folks who have a very clear set of principles that we practice. I know that sounds kind of hippy-dippy, but honestly, what I will be honest about is that to start off in any organization, to say business, product, and engineering has to be in the room, or the major stakeholders need to, is not a fun, nor is it an easy process. It is like people don't speak each other's languages sometimes, right? And most of the time. And what you start to see, especially at the earlier stages, is that if you put all these folks in a room, they will find a common ground. Right? And I always say it's all in the constraints and defining what your constraints are. And to me, I would never want to make a decision at any company I'm at now unless I had a business, product, and engineering person in the same room. But I think everyone rubs off on each other, right? And that's just something that just happens over time.
But then the message that you take to market, discourse that you take to market, how far out is that speaking to? Is that speaking 6 weeks out, 6 months out, are there different messages that you then map back to the roadmap? How does that work?
Yeah, I would say that's probably at the discretion of the person, whoever's doing it, right? As long as people are aware of the 6-week and the 6-month, I think that's a fantastic mental model for all of us at a company to have, right? To be able to know, like, if a customer wants to dig into something that's more tactical, I have the 6-week, like I could tell them what's happening in 6 weeks. And that's kind of the beauty of it, right? Is that they can surface the 6-month conversation up to me.
Yeah.
And then if I really do need to bring in someone on the 6-year level, like typically it's just fundraising and investors, right?
Yeah.
Our CEO
Understood.
will cover that. Yeah.
Thanks. I really like the presentation. Does Neighborly have product market fit?
It's a good question. We're actually going through a pivot right now. So I would say in the product that we had previously, we didn't, but we do. We're starting to have measurements around it right now, the current product that we're selling.
Cool. Yeah. So I was wondering, in your personal experience, I know you presented the 2 kind of surveys based on yes or no, but how's it been different for you from a process standpoint, working on a company that does have it versus that doesn't?
Yeah, like Carta and Neighborly?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot harder, to be honest. I saw Carta go from trying to figure out who our customers were, fighting with law firms and CFOs, to then joining a company that was at the Carta stage, sort of 30 people again, and then sort of clawing our way back up. When you're doing product at a company that has found product market fit, it's like the golden ages. You just feel invincible, right? And so I probably don't need to talk about that, but probably to your question around finding product market fit, I think it's really, really important to have a strong team and to focus just on people. This is sort of frameworks that help strengthen that. But I think the most important thing when you're trying to find product market fit is that you understand that it's going to be a really tough time and you need to have the right people in place.
I guess the last thing would be, how do you know when you have it?
Product market fit?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of really great definitions. I think even USV has like a ton.
Can't just be a gut feeling, right?
No, it's not a gut feeling, right? So Superhuman quantifies it, right? They literally look at how many of their users would be really mad if they couldn't use Superhuman anymore. I would be really mad, right? So, and they track that percentage to like around 40-50% of users if they answer very disappointed that they couldn't use your product. You know, that's sort of like their quantified thing. Sam Altman has a great quote around product market fit, and it's this idea that you have product market fit if people are just sort of orally referring your product to people, just talking about it because they love it so much, right? Shout out to Tribe Capital. So Tribe Capital is a venture capital firm that was recently formed by Arjun Sethi and Jonathan Su, same last name. And he wrote a blog post around quantifying sort of this question of like product as well as business KPIs into product market fit that I would highly recommend you read. But he's a data scientist, so he was a data scientist at Facebook and spent a lot of time building out their data science program. And he goes into basically the nitty gritty of how to be able to, or being able to tie something like user actions on top of business like financial statements. And he actually molds those two things together. So I'd highly recommend reading that.
Cool.
As well, yeah.
Thanks.
One more question?
Hey, Kevin.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, sure. Hey, Kevin. Have a question on whether you have any insights on how to be effective in including the business voice in your sprint meetings and stand-ups, et cetera, and balancing kind of short-term feature requests with the product strategy. Anything that you found that is necessary to be effective in that, whether it's the seniority of the business members that you include or leaning heavily on that 6-week, 6-month plan, et cetera?
Yeah, so those are great questions. A couple of more tactical things that we implement. So we always keep a running wish list on any product initiative. So people can go into Asana and just add in their thoughts. And we always sort of try to train that muscle memory. So when people ask for feature requests, we say, hey, put in the wish list. And then we actually actively groom the wish list, or the product managers will. In terms of in meetings, like how do you have civil discourse around, you have a strong business person in the room, you have a strong engineer in the room, you have a strong product person in the room. How do you have civil discourse? We actually use, in any of our meetings, we actually have a section for discussions. And we always make sure to curate that prior to going in, right? So that if someone has a hot button topic that, like, you sort of DM them or something and make sure to get clarification. So there's a lot of power in just like prepping. It's really simple. And then lastly, creating a space for those conversations, right? So we have product forums and encouraging folks that have strong opinions but may not feel comfortable talking in front of an engineer or a product person, creating space for them. We call it product forum, you call it whatever you want, to where people feel comfortable coming in with their sort of raw ideas or sort of like unfettered ideas, and then training the product team to be able to not shoot them down, right? But it's sort of the yes and is really important.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Remote participants, this concludes our presentations. We are now going to break for lunch. Feel free to stay on. However, that concludes the content portion of the morning. Everyone in the room, let's take about 20 minutes. Lunch is outside. I'm just going to pull it in and set it up. And so we'll take 20 minutes, have a casual lunch and conversation. I'm going to select the breakout topics, and then we'll just quickly go over that, and we'll break out into our first session in about 20 minutes or so. Sound good? Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for those joining remotely. Have a wonderful day, and I will share follow-up notes, if not this afternoon, tomorrow.